All right, so today we're going to dive into something I think you'll find pretty fascinating. We're talking about the future of warfare,
Okay.
specifically sixth-generation fighter jets.
Oh, wow.
Like, you've probably heard of stealth fighters, right?
Right.
But this is like the next level. Technology so advanced, it's almost like bending reality.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to kind of unpack just what makes these jets so revolutionary.
Okay.
And we're doing this based on a recent news segment that really blew me away.
Cool. What's incredible about these jets is that we're not talking about just like minor upgrades here.
Yeah.
These sixth-generation jets represent a complete transformation in how air combat will be conducted in the future.
Exactly. It's like they've ripped these concepts straight out of a science fiction movie.
Yeah,
Jets that can practically vanish from radar, fly faster than the speed of sound, and even fire laser beams.
it's wild.
This isn't just an upgrade, it's a whole different ballgame.
Totally. The level of stealth technology is mind-blowing. I mean, these jets are designed to be basically invisible to enemy radar, like completely invisible to infrared detection systems.
It's like they have an actual cloaking device, like in Star Trek,
It's crazy.
but invisibility is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
What really got me was the AI co-pilot technology.
Uh-huh.
I mean, having a computer making tactical decisions in the middle of a dogfight, I mean, that's exciting, but it's also kind of terrifying, isn't it?
It's a big step, sure, but think of it more like the AI isn't completely replacing the pilot. It's more like a really advanced wingman.
Okay.
The AI can analyze all these threats, recommend the best course of action, and even coordinate attacks with drone swarms.
Uh-huh.
They call it the loyal wingman concept.
Okay, so now that sounds like something straight out of a video go.
Right.
Drone swarms. So these jets wouldn't just be fighting solo, they'd have their own little mini air force backing them up.
Exactly. Imagine one jet coordinating a whole squadron of drones. That's a massive force multiplier.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Huge.
And then there's the whole thing about hypersonic speed. The news segment I saw, they were saying these jets could travel at over 6,100 kilometers per hour, that's Mach 5, 5 times the speed of sound.
Yeah.
I mean, for people who aren't familiar with what that actually means, we're talking about practically crossing continents in like the time it takes to watch a movie.
It's insane.
But wouldn't the heat and stress on the aircraft be like immense at those speeds?
It's definitely a big challenge, but the benefits are massive. I mean, think about like intercepting enemy missiles
Uh-huh.
or reaching a target on the other side of the world in a fraction of the time it takes today.
It's like they're rewriting the rules of air combat.
Totally.
Okay, but let's talk about something that sounds straight out of Star Wars. Energy weapons.
Okay.
Lasers, microwave. Is that stuff actually feasible on a fighter jet?
It's not sci-fi anymore. A lot of countries are already testing laser defense systems.
Right.
And the potential applications on these sixth-generation jets are just incredible. I mean, think about like super precise strikes
Uh-huh.
with minimal collateral damage, or like disabling enemy electronics without massive explosions.
So you're saying we could have a future where dogfights involve laser beams?
Yeah, potentially.
That's wild. But there's another concept that really caught my eye.
What's that?
Networked warfare. What does that even mean?
Think of it this way. Every jet is like a node in a giant information network. They're constantly sharing data with other aircraft, drones, ground forces.
Yeah.
This means that battles are no longer fought by like isolated units, but by a coordinated force that can adapt in real time.
So it's less about individual dogfights. It's more about this huge interconnected battle space.
Right.
It completely changes how wars are fought.
Totally.
Okay, but with all of this technology, that's incredible stuff.
Yeah.
There's one thing that really makes me wonder. This optional pilot operation.
Uh-huh.
Does that mean we're talking about jets that can actually fly themselves?
That's exactly what it means. These jets are being designed to operate with or without a pilot, which
Wow.
it raises a lot of questions, though. Like, how do you prevent hacking, malfunctions?
Yeah.
Are we ready to trust machines to make life or death decisions?
That's a whole other conversation, but it's pretty crazy to think that future wars might be fought by, like, pilotless jets.
It's a wild concept.
Okay, so we've got stealth, AI, hypersonic speed, energy weapons, networked battlefield.
Yep.
Anything else we should add to this already impressive list?
Oh, one more crucial thing. Their electronic warfare capabilities. Sixth-generation jets aren't just about avoiding enemy radar.
Okay.
They can also hack and jam enemy systems. Imagine disrupting their communications, their targeting systems, blinding them, deafening them in the middle of a battle.
It's like they're playing chess while the enemy is stuck playing checkers.
It's a huge advantage.
Yeah. So who is leading the charge in developing all this? The news segment I saw mentioned a bunch of international projects.
Oh yeah, it's a global race for sure. The United States has their NGA program, which is really focused on AI, hypersonic missiles, advanced sensors,
Uh-huh.
and then they have their FAXX, which is specifically designed for naval combat.
Okay, so what about other countries? Are they keeping up with the U.S.?
Oh, yeah. Britain, Japan, and Italy are all working together on the Tempest program, which prioritizes autonomy and laser weapons.
Wow.
Then you got France, Germany, Spain working on the FCAS project, which is it's a system of systems approach.
What does that mean?
Think of it like an orchestra.
Okay.
You've got the fighter jet, the drones, the ground units all playing their part. But it's the conductor, the overall system that brings it all together.
That's a really cool analogy. Sounds super complex, though.
It is.
What about Russia and China? They're usually major players when it comes to this stuff.
Russia's got the MiG-41, which is rumored to be able to hit like Mach 5, that's a serious contender. China, as always, is keeping their cards close to their chest, but we know they're working on a sixth-generation fighter. The lack of details is a little unnerving, though.
Yeah, it does make you wonder what they're cooking up over there.
Yeah. And then you've got India with their AMCA project trying to join the ranks of countries with this advanced fighter tech.
It's amazing to see so many countries investing in this, but with all this advanced technology, there have got to be some major challenges, right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, all of this cutting-edge stuff can't be cheap.
You're telling me cost is a huge factor? I mean, these jets are insanely expensive to develop and build. We're talking like upwards of $300 million a piece.
So you're saying these jets cost more than some small country's entire GDP?
It's crazy, right?
That's insane. But cost aside, what about just the technical hurdles involved? I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to integrate AI, hypersonics, energy weapons, all into one aircraft.
It's a monumental task, no doubt. And then you got the logistical, strategic issues to consider.
Yeah.
How do you train pilots to use these machines? How do you develop tactics and strategies for using these capabilities in the real world?
Yeah, it feels like we're on the verge of like a whole new era of warfare.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, I think we need to really dive into one of the most fascinating and potentially game-changing aspects of this, which is this whole optional pilot operation.
Right.
Are we really talking about pilotless fighter jets? I mean, what are the safeguards? How do you prevent hacking malfunctions? What are the ethics of having machines make life or death decisions in combat?
That's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back.
So we've talked about just how crazy advanced these sixth-generation jets are.
Right.
But now let's get into what might be the most significant feature. This
Yeah.
optional pilot operation.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this idea of jets flying themselves is
Wild.
it's pretty wild.
It is.
It brings up so many questions.
Yeah.
Starting with, how do you even begin to prevent something like that from getting hacked?
Right.
I mean, has anyone even figured that out yet?
It's a huge challenge, and cybersecurity is like the top priority for anyone developing this technology.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You've got this incredibly sophisticated AI system controlling a multi-million-dollar weapon.
Right.
You absolutely cannot let that fall in the wrong hands.
Okay, but let's say they do crack the cybersecurity code.
Uh-huh.
What about my functions? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
computers glitch all the time.
Right.
What happens if a jet's AI just goes haywire in the middle of a mission?
That's where things like redundancy and fail-safes come in.
Okay.
Imagine multiple layers of backup systems and protocols, all designed to prevent a single point of failure.
Uh-huh.
And even if something does go wrong,
Yeah.
there's always the option for a human operator to take control remotely.
Okay, so there's always a human in the loop, even if they're not physically in the cockpit.
Right.
But even with all those safeguards,
Yeah.
it still feels a little unsettling, you know?
I know what you mean.
To think about machines making life or death decisions in combat,
Yeah.
I mean, what are the ethical implications of that?
It's a huge debate.
Yeah.
It's been going on for years.
Right.
There are strong arguments on both sides.
Uh-huh.
Some believe that AI could actually make warfare more humane
How so?
by reducing collateral damage, minimizing risk to human soldiers.
Okay.
Think about it. A machine wouldn't be making decisions based on fear or anger or revenge.
Right.
It would be pure logic and data.
Okay, I can see the logic there.
Yep,
But it still feels like kind of a slippery slope, you know?
I know what you mean.
What happens if an AI system malfunctions or makes a decision that results in unintended consequences? I mean,
Right.
who's ultimately responsible for that?
Those are really important questions.
Yeah.
And that's why it's crucial to have really robust ethical guidelines in place for developing and using AI in warfare.
Yeah.
We need to be asking ourselves these questions now
Right.
before this technology becomes even more advanced.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's not just about the technology itself.
True.
It's about how we use it and what kind of future we're creating.
for sure.
But even if we put aside the ethical considerations for a moment,
Okay.
there's still some pretty major strategic implications we need to think about.
Sure.
Like, How would the widespread adoption of these sixth-generation jets change the global balance of power?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
It's a crucial question. Remember, these jets are incredibly expensive.
right.
Only a handful of countries will have the resources to actually build and maintain a significant fleet of these.
Right.
So you could very well see a scenario where a small group of technologically advanced nations become even more dominant
Yeah.
while others struggle to keep up.
It almost sounds like a new kind of arms race,
Yeah,
but instead of just stockpiling weapons, it's about who has the most advanced technology.
right.
That could create a pretty dangerous imbalance of power, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's not just about the number of jets either.
Right.
It's about the sophistication of the technology.
Uh-huh.
The ability to integrate different systems,
Yeah.
develop effective tactics and strategies.
Right.
It's a multidimensional race
Wow.
where technological superiority is constantly evolving.
It's kind of like a modern-day Cold War,
Uh-huh,
but with even higher stakes and more sophisticated technology.
for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the ethical dilemmas,
Yeah.
this potential for a new arms race.
Right.
Let's shift gears for a second and talk about something a bit more practical.
Okay.
How would these jets actually be used in combat?
Yeah.
I mean, what would that look like?
Well, they're incredibly versatile and adaptable.
Okay.
Imagine air superiority missions, ground attack, reconnaissance, you name it.
Uh-huh.
These jets are basically the Swiss Army knives of aerial warfare.
Okay.
They're multi-role platforms that could be tailored for a specific mission.
So they're not just about, like, dogfights anymore. They're
Yeah.
like multi-purpose tools that can dominate the battle space in all sorts of ways.
Exact.
And with their stealth capabilities and electronic warfare systems, they'd be pretty much impossible to counter.
It would be very difficult.
Yeah.
They're designed to penetrate enemy defenses, disrupt communications, and take control of the airspace.
Right.
It could completely change how air combat is conducted.
Wow, so it's not just about the air either.
Right, exactly.
What do you mean?
Well, with their ability to coordinate with drones and ground forces,
Yeah.
these jets could play a really crucial role in what we call integrated operations across multiple domains.
Uh-huh.
Think of seamless air, land, and sea operations, all working together in real time.
That's crazy.
It is.
It's like a giant interconnected battlefield
It is.
where everything is coordinated and synchronized.
Exactly.
That would be a game changer in future conflicts.
Absolutely. And that's just one example of how sixth-generation fighter jets could completely change the face of warfare.
Okay, so we've covered this incredible technology,
Yeah.
ethical concerns, strategic implications,
Uh-huh.
even how these jets might be used in combat.
Right.
It's a lot to take in.
It is,
And it's clear that we're really just at the beginning of a whole new era in warfare.
for sure.
But what was the future hold beyond these initial developments? I
Right.
mean, what might warfare look like in 10, 20, even 50 years from now?
It's a big question.
I think it's time to put on our speculative hats and explore some potential future scenarios.
Okay.
Are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so we've established that these sixth-gen jets are, well, pretty incredible, but they also come with a lot of big question marks.
Right.
So now we're going to kind of look into our crystal ball a little bit and imagine what warfare might actually look like decades from now. And for our first scenario, we're jumping right into the deep end.
Okay.
Fully autonomous warfare.
That's right. We're talking machines calling the shots on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Little to no human involvement at all.
Yeah, a lot of people find that idea pretty unsettling.
For sure.
Is it even realistic, though? I mean, given where AI is right now?
It's definitely a possibility. AI is advancing so rapidly.
Right.
It's hard to imagine a future where it's capable of making those really complex tactical decisions in real time.
Uh-huh.
Some argue it could even make warfare less destructive.
Wait, hold on. How would removing humans from warfare make it less destructive?
Okay, so think about it this way. A machine, it wouldn't be driven by emotions,
Right.
like fear, anger, revenge.
Right.
Its decisions would be based purely on logic and data,
Yeah.
aiming at achieving very specific objectives
Uh-huh.
with as few casualties as possible.
Okay, yeah, I can see the logic there.
Yeah,
But it still feels like we're losing something important when we take human judgment out of the picture, you
right.
know?
I get that.
What about unpredictable situations or, moral dilemmas that require that kind of nuanced thinking
Right.
that maybe an algorithm just can't provide?
That's a really valid point.
Yeah.
And it's something that has to be carefully considered. I mean, the future of warfare isn't just about technological advancement.
Right.
It's about how we actually integrate these new technologies into our ethical and strategic frameworks.
So it's not just about building smarter machines. It's about
Right.
figuring out how to use them responsibly.
Exactly, and ethically.
Responsibly and ethically.
Okay, but let's say for a second that we do manage to figure out all those ethical and practical challenges.
Okay.
Wouldn't that just lead to a whole other kind of arms race?
Right.
Where countries are now competing to build the most powerful AI-controlled weapons.
A real risk, yeah. You could end up with a few nations that have these crazy advanced AI-powered militaries
Right.
while everyone else is left behind.
Yeah.
And that kind of technological gap,
Yeah.
it could lead to instability, even conflict.
So instead of actually preventing war, this technology could actually make it more likely.
Yeah, potentially.
It's kind of a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
But let's move beyond this idea of autonomous warfare for a minute.
Okay.
What are some other future scenarios that we should be thinking about? Well, one possibility is the rise of what we call hybrid warfare,
Okay.
which combines traditional military operations with cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, economic pressure.
So it's less about like all-out war
Right.
and more about using this mix of tactics to undermine your opponent
Right.
without necessarily engaging in direct combat.
Yeah, exactly. And these sixth-generation jets, with all of their advanced networking and electronic warfare capabilities,
Right.
they could play a huge role in this kind of conflict.
How so?
Imagine using them to cripple an enemy's infrastructure,
Uh-huh.
disrupt their communications,
Yeah.
sow chaos and confusion
Right.
before a single shot is even fired.
Wow, that sounds like a really effective but also a really unsettling way to wage war.
Yeah, for sure.
It feels like the lines between war and peace they're becoming more and more blurred.
Right.
But if this is the future that we're heading towards, I mean, what can we do to make sure that these technologies are used responsibly?
That's the big question.
It may
One thing we could do is foster more open dialogue and collaboration
Okay.
between different nations.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just competing against each other,
Right.
we need to be talking about things like ethical guidelines for AI development,
Yeah.
arms control agreements,
Right.
ways to prevent these technologies from falling into the wrong hands.
It seems like a pretty tall order given the current state of, global politics.
It's a huge challenge.
But if we want to avoid a future where war is just fought entirely by machines
Right.
with potentially, devastating consequences,
Yeah.
it feels like we need to be having those conversations now.
Absolutely. We have a responsibility to shape the future that we want to see.
Right.
And that starts with understanding the implications of these technologies
Yeah.
and working together to manage them responsibly.
It's been a wild ride, exploring this world of sixth-generation fighter jets.
It has.
The technology, the ethical concerns, the strategic implications.
It's
I
fascinating.
mean, one thing is clear.
What's that?
This is really just the beginning of a whole new chapter in warfare.
It's a new era,
It is, and it's an era full of both promise and peril.
for sure.
And the choices we make today, they're going to determine what that future looks like.
Absolutely.
It's a powerful thought. And it's a reminder that even though we're talking about this incredible technology, it's up to us as
Yeah.
a global community
Right.
to decide how it's used. So we hope this deep dive has given you a little glimpse into that future
Yeah.
and maybe sparked some important questions
Some things to think about.
in your own mind. So thanks for joining us.